Hey everyone, welcome to Otaku Talk. It's me, your boy, your host, OD, and today we'll be reviewing chapter 1123 of One Piece. My apologies, guys. I've been gone for quite some time. I've been having some struggles in life, but I'm back now. Uh, I would get into it, but it's neither here nor there. I'm just really happy to talk about this chapter because this chapter has excited me in such a way, and I think that is a phenomenal way to end Egghead. So without further ado, let's get into this review. And if this is your first time on this channel, please do me a favor and like, share, and subscribe. It would mean the absolute world to me. Anyway, let's get into Alright, so we're going to be reviewing chapter 1123, The Void Fortnight. But before we do that, I want to touch on some things from 1122 that I obviously didn't get to because I didn't do that review. I'm not going to talk about the entirety of that chapter. I just want to talk about one of the main key things that happened in that, and that was the hockey rope that was imbued with Joy Boy's strongest hockey. That was insane. It taught us a lot, and it just goes to show that Oda kind of sets things up. And he sets them up in ways that you might not realize that they're correlated. So obviously everyone that saw that related it instantly to the wind knots on Witheria, right? And so because of that, we have to wonder, okay, is it similar technology? Is it the rope? I don't think it's the rope at all. I don't think the rope is special. I think we're going to find out that you can imbue hockey into anything, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. But going back to the rope thing, it would make a lot of sense if, you can, if people are able to imbue hockey in things. I think that maybe that might be part of how Shanks is able to transverse so quickly. I've always had this theory that his sword has a certain ability to it that has elements, and he uses the wind from it to push the Great Eric or whatever it's called around. That's been one theory. But if you can imbue these knots with like wind and like hockey and stuff like that, maybe he just has a bunch of those on deck, right? Now, to go on to talking about imbuing hockey and things, we've seen it with swords. This isn't anything new. Like we can all kind of assume that a black blade in some way, shape, or form is a sword that has been permanently imbued with the hockey of someone. Now, how that process happens, how that process takes place, we don't have any clue, but we do know for certain, like, that is generally what is happening. And we've seen, I don't know if we've seen hockey imbued in other things, but like, this isn't something super shocking, but like nonetheless it's very like surprising to get, and I'm super glad that we're getting this. Speaking of imbuing hockey and things, I think I've mentioned this before, but if I haven't, maybe that explains why Sea Stone and the poneglyphs and stuff like that are so strong. The explanation that we got before was, they have particles of they have, the waves of the sea, the energy from the sea is retained in the sea stone, and so it retains properties of the sea and stuff like that. And you know what? If that is the explanation, and at the end of the day, if that is what it ends up being, that is totally cool with me. That is totally fine. But I am just open up to the possibility that, maybe Sea Stone, Karaseki, and all that stuff is massively imbued like stone that has hockey in it, okay? Who the hell knows? Wano is like the birthplace of not hockey, sorry, is the like place where Sea Stone is originally from. So I wouldn't be surprised if there were a bunch of, hockeyed up D-Clan members living on hockey who imbued like a bunch of stone with hockey, and like that is what gets used. Now there's some logistical issues, like how do they break it up, use it for pieces, this, that, the other. So maybe that's not it. Maybe I'm kind of jumping the gun a little bit, but once again, I'm just opening my eyes up to the possibility, or possibilities, so to speak. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the poneglyphs were capable of being destroyed. You just need someone with Joy Boy levels of hockey to be able to do it. So I believe that as well. Also, I think you can get other powers from hockey. We saw it in film Red, and we're starting to see it a little bit more now in this current place in the story. We've seen that hockey recently is very versatile. We've seen it in film Red. We're seeing it more recently now in the story in Egghead. So I wouldn't be surprised if there are other peripheral abilities that hockey allows you to have, such as, psychic telepathic abilities. To this day, we don't really truly know what Shanks did to what's it called, Green Bull, when he communicated to him. Did he communicate him with Wi-Fi hockey, as we're calling it? Originally, I thought it was back to my original theory with the elemental sword, and he was sending like wind and carrying his voice through the wind. But it could have just purely been hockey. We don't know all the limits and capabilities of hockey. And once again, this has been like an upper echelon thing. There's a whole place where people don't really use hockey. Then you get to the new world, and you have people that are like, in order to use hockey, you have to, in order to survive, you have to be able to use a modicum of hockey. And then you have the big wigs that can use like advanced versions of these hockeys. And then there might just be, a level beyond that, just like peak levels of hockey. And I think that's the point of the story that we're starting to get to. It might even be a celestial thing, being able to use like, telepathy and stuff. It might be like celestials with hockey have that ability as well. Who the hell knows? Anyway, Emmett releases the hockey, destroys everything, knocks everyone out, sends the Gorosei back to fucking Mary Joie, and Saturn is still there, but that was because, if you remember, Saturn didn't teleport there. He came by ship. So I guess if you were summoned here or whatever, like enough hockey can cancel out whatever keeps you there and send you back. And so that's a really, really interesting concept. I'm also wondering, because Saturn is here, is he going to get away? Is he going to be able to escape? Is he going to get killed? What's her name took his appearance, so maybe this is the moment where all that comes into play. Who knows? But that is also something very, very interesting. And I'm also wondering, if it is a devil fruit or a hockey ability, is it Emu? Is that the reason that they're able to come here? I've already discussed, are the Gorosei like satellites for Emu, right? So just, it's crazy. It's insane. And I'm just going to leave like that aspect for now. I want to go ahead and get started into the next chapter. So we have a cover story. Yamato is with those kids that earlier did not like her. I'm saying her because, once again, being Odin is not thinking you're a guy, it's thinking you're Odin. And I have a whole speech on that. But anyway, they're eating together, and it says something about enemies eating together. And I think that might possibly be a big theme in One Piece. That might be part of Luffy's dream for everyone in the world to either party together or feast together or something like that, even enemies. So that's going to be a really I like that cover story, and I think it's going to be an allusion to like things that might happen later. Something I want to talk about though is we start off this chapter and we see all the freaking Marines like knocked out, completely knocked out. Some of them are Doll is still a baby, and so now she's a baby doll. That's hilarious. And just one thing that immediately went to my mind is, how the hell were all the bad guys knocked out and all the good guys, remained, able to were unaffected, basically, right? And so we've seen with Riley earlier, because I think earlier when Luffy uses his hockey burst, his Conqueror hockey burst, he knocks out everyone indiscriminately. And then we kind of find out during Sabaody, I think, that like he can selectively just knock out people here and there who he chooses. And so once again, it kind of makes sense. Hockey is willpower, right? And so you can will yourself, your own intent, your own will, your desires into that hockey. It literally is what hockey is. And so the way I perceive it is, Joy Boy put his hockey in this with the intention, with the will of, hey, protect my friend. Anyone that Emmett deems is a enemy, like that's who I attack. Anyone that, or not anyone that Emmett deems an enemy, but anyone that has malice or wishes to cause harm to Emmett or those that Emmett cares about, this hockey will affect them. But those who have no issue with him, I'm not going to. And I think that's going to be such a very, very important thing in the future, because it seems as though through hockey people are going to be able to cause ripples in the present from the past. Okay, we're going to be able to we're going to get hockey echoes from the past that resound in the present day, and I think that's going to be fire. I've had this theory for a while now that there's potential that the poneglyphs contain like people in them, or maybe hockey remnants in them, and so this would really, really play into that theory if it comes true, right? Something else that gets discussed in this chapter is the fact that the hockey Unleashed is comparable to Shanks. Now, whether or not you read this and you perceive it as Shanks' hockey is better or Joy Boy's hockey is greater, that's not the point. That doesn't fucking matter. What matters is it's comparable. And I think it's kind of insane that they didn't mention like Luffy at all. They've seen Luffy in Gear 5, full Joy Boy mode, and despite that, they never once mentioned like his hockey being comparable to Shanks. And I think that speaks volumes. I think that means that while Luffy's Elfru is OP as fuck, and while Luffy is incredibly powerful, he still has a ways to go when it comes to Conqueror's hockey, and Shanks still stands at the peak. If the literal greatest display of Conqueror's hockey that we have ever seen in the entire series is literally being compared to Shanks, like Shanks got that. Like Shanks has that completely. I think seeing the state that Luffy is in right now clearly shows us that going Gear 5 is going to kill Luffy. It's just going to. It's very similar to the way the drugs from the is it the Tomato Tonko box or whatever it's called, that was in Fishman Island arc that Hody and his crew used, how it turned their hair white, gave them red eyes, gave them a boost in abilities, but at the expense of draining their life force and stuff. And we've seen repeatedly and constantly that when Luffy uses his Gear 5 ability and goes into Gear 5, once he comes out of it, he's withered, he's old, his vitality has been drained, and I just think that, you know, consecutive uses of this is just going to catch up to him. And that's kind of part of the moral of One Piece, is that like live fast, die young. Like live your life to like the fullest and accomplish what you want to accomplish, because like longevity in life means nothing if it's like complacent, if you're not doing anything with it. And I think Oda's going to try to showcase that like it's okay that Luffy is dying. It's okay because he accomplished his dreams. He's dying with a smile on his face. He's dying after like, you know, doing what he wanted to do in this world. And I think that Oda's going to try to like, you know, give that message to us. So we will see. But I kind of wanted to be under the impression that because Luffy's doing it the right way, he's not using drugs, he's purely activating it, it would be like better for him in some way, or like he'd be immune to like these kind of effects. But once again, I know as much as you guys know, so we're just gonna have to keep watching and figuring it out. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is I wonder if the energy increase Shaka mentions when he's talking about the Seraphim is the 98% the Seraphim are on, right? So the Seraphim were designed and created to get stronger as they get older, right? So right now, they're not even in their final forms. Something we noticed when we first were introduced to Seraphim was above all their tanks was a 98%. And we were all wondering what that was. Was their cloning process stopped prematurely? Are they not supposed to be children, or are they supposed to be adults? Is that how much charge they have? So I'm wondering if that 98% is purely caused and due to the fact that Mother Flame energy was being siphoned away, and the Seraphim and certain other projects weren't able to get all the energy they needed to get to completion. That's just a theory. I'm not sure, but it would make a lot of sense. Also, the panel with all the not all of them, but with Shaka, Stella Vegapunk, and Pythagoras, just made me reminded me so much of like how much I fuck with Shaka's design, and how I low key wish that like that was Vegapunk's design, and makes me kind of feel like Oda initially wanted that to be his design, and so to kind of have like his cake and eat it too, like all the satellite designs are like potential like designs that Oda initially made for Vegapunk, and then was like, I can use them all if I do this. Obviously I think it's more than that. I think it's planned. I think it's also going to be, you know, a parallel to what Imu is doing with the Gorosei and such. But still, I find it really, really interesting nonetheless. All right. So the Vegapunks find out that York is the snitch, even though... Oh, sorry. They find out that there is a snitch. And I think it's hilarious. We get so much dramatic irony with, like, Vegapunk being like, it's Lilith. It's Lilith. It's definitely Lilith. God damn it, Lilith. All that stuff. And I think it's hilarious because, one, the fact that you know that Lilith potentially could be the traitor, like, why did you even make an evil version of yourself? Or is it a situation where, like, he can control it? Like, these personalities were going to come out. Like there's evil in him, so evil was going to be created. So he had to create a form of it. But also, like, why don't you have any like? It just seems once again my excuse for Vegapunk since the entirety of Egghead has been he just seems super naive. He just seems like a really really naive person, and that seems to be like the easy headcanon excuse for a lot of his behaviors and stuff. Because why would you not put any safety parameters or like contingencies or something for something like this to happen? Now the other flip side of this is Vegapunk clearly values like human life and existence, and things like, you know, how you were born are meaningless to him. They're completely meaningless to him. Once you exist, you exist. You're in existence. It doesn't matter how you came into existence. You exist. You think, therefore you are. Like Vegapunk seems to like think that. And also I think there are things that don't necessarily think but are like you know, like the going merry and stuff like that. So like there's way more to deal with that. We have the Buckingham Stussy clone, so we have all that going on, right? And so I just feel like he is of the opinion that like, fuck it, whatever happens happens. He completely embodies Tom, where it's like you can't hate your creations, you can't be mad at your creations, you can't try to control your creations. Whatever they do, but you have to love them as your like children, quote unquote. And like that's kind of like what is happening. Anyway, I just love this part of the chapter because we finally got explanations for a lot of things that I feel like were perturbing the fan base. A lot of us felt like, Oda, like, we trust you, you're cooking, but like, come on, dude, there's stuff missing. This is a lot of the missing stuff. Not everything, but a lot of the missing stuff. And once again, why I always say you have to let Oda cook. You gotta let him finish. You gotta let him get to where he's going. Because while you're reading, you're like, where is this going? What's happening? This is taking forever long. I've been through that. I've done that all the time. But then he always comes through in the clutch. Now, I would be lying if I didn't say that I was kind of super excited when I saw that like 2 weeks thing. I thought, oh, is this where we finally go back and see the events that happened on Egghead that we missed, like Robin getting hurt and the fight with the Seraphim and stuff like that? I was like, oh my god, I won't feel like an idiot because I swore like to you guys and myself that like that's definitely something that's going to be happening. There's no way it doesn't happen, and then it didn't happen, and I felt so stupid. But like no. That doesn't get addressed, but we have a bunch of other things get addressed. Once again, we have the addressing of the traitor, finding out that it is York, using a Denden Mushi to find that out, and we find out why he didn't do anything, and then we find out why he set up the Dead Man Switch. And I'm going to be very... Well, all right, let me keep going. He talks about letting his greed run amok, and how any personification of his, to be honest, she's always kind of given into... Anyway, he talks about, you know, letting the irony and stuff like that of letting his greed run amok. But once again, he let his evil run amok. So I digress. But like, literally, she is a personification of his greed, of his desire. So this was reckless. This was problematic. And I do think that like, while he always had that greed and desire that York does, like he definitely had that. Like that's the whole, like, people do not forget this dude works for the world government, and he did that purely for hedonistic reasons. Like, yeah, he uses his technology to help people, but he just wanted to be able to research, and the what's it called, Revolutionary Army would have taken him in and probably would have given him a lab and stuff, but they don't have the resources, the money, the power, the access that the world government did, and so he went with the highest bidder. Like, we have to acknowledge that. Like, you can like Vegapunk all you want, but that is something we have to acknowledge, that like he let his greed and desire kind of take... Now, would we have all these things? Would all these things be possible? No, but at the end of the day, his, like... What's the word I'm looking for? His motives weren't 100% pure, and I just want everyone to know that at the moment. And so I think that when all of these personalities were together, which is weird, because like, does the original Vegapunk still have all these emotions, or are they out of him now? It's never really explained. It's super confusing. And do the other ones have other emotions? And like, they're only split up into like 6 kind of like emotions and like paths and whatnot, but there's so many more. So how are they divvied up and whatnot? Because the point I'm trying to get to is like, I feel like while he was always greedy and had desire, all his other like characteristics of himself counterbalance all of that, and York, without all of that, it was just allowed to reign free and run amok and cause like chaos and stuff. Also, they finally addressed my favorite elephant in the room. What does death mean for them? We get this panel with Vegapunk's brain and like what does this mean for us? And I'm so glad that they address this. Now I'm a little upset that they just address it and don't answer it, but that to me, the addressing alone, to me at least, says that okay, Oda's like, okay guys, I'm aware, I'm cognizant of this. This is going to have relevance and meaning. I'm just not explaining it right now. I'm not forgetting. I'm not just letting it go. But like, I acknowledge it, and this will be answered. Because another thing is like, I don't know if we got everything from this flashback. Because one thing I've been asking myself, chapter after chapter after chapter, is what is going to happen to Punk Records, right? What is going to happen to this big brain? There's no way in hell the government is not going to do anything with it. York, I think, is still alive right now, so she may be able to use it for evil. So like it just doesn't make sense for them to have left it like that. So there has to be another contingency, some other plan that we were not privy to, we were not allowed in on during this chapter, but that was done, and we may get like a flashback or something about later, right? Something I didn't like in this chapter was Vegapunk sort of just resigns himself to his death and just kind of gives, in my opinion, kind of bullshit, weak excuses why like he can't like do anything, why he can't. He's like, I'm Vegapunk, my face, like people know me, my face is recognizable. They'll never let me go. They'll find me anywhere. I could maybe survive for a while, but yeah, all these things. And I'm like, that is such like horse shit. Cause like, yeah, he's gonna be like not like world enemy numero uno unless it's like, you know, Luffy also. But like, I just feel like you have so many tools at your disposal. You're the smartest man in the world. You have so much technology. You could create a new body for yourself. You could create a new face for yourself. You can you could create all new bodies for your satellites and transport them in somewhere. You could go hang out with the revolutionaries. You could go hang out with Luffy. You could go hang out with in some random island. You could go hang out with Shanks. Shanks loves to take on weak people, and I know you don't really have a connection with him, but like it just did not make sense to me how resigned to his fate he was, especially including the fact that like they saved Lilith. Lilith is a Vegapunk. She knows about the Void Century too, I believe, right? Unless it's just those three main Vegapunks, but like that doesn't make sense to me either. So like it's just all super duper confusing. Maybe Oda just is really dead set on having this like impactful like sacrifice, but like I just feel like there's a million and one like alternative solutions and things that Vegapunk could have done that he just said, fuck it, I give up, I'm done, I don't want to live anymore, and just kind of gave up. It was nonsensical to me. But yeah, so like, yeah, there's this fucking organic supercomputer just chilling. I did like the theory people had that as they died, they got uploaded to it, and this was like them in the cloud post-death, like making this announcement. I thought that was kind of a cool idea, but that wasn't it. But I think that would have been really cool as well. Also, there's literally no reason why like they can't set the message on a timer or something, have multiple messages, have it play from Egghead while also simultaneously like having a backup that they can like play somewhere else or like get to someone else in case the government is able to find it in the Iron Giant. I just feel like so much of this plan was a little bit like ill-conceived and wonky, but like what can I say, man? I'm not the world's smartest man, but like I don't know, certain things just like continuously rub me the wrong way about like that entire scenario and such. Anyway, they talk about the importance of the cloud loft technology, and I've been talking about this a lot as well. So Vegapunk's intentions are to clearly give humans a place to retreat when the water levels rise too high for them to like stay on the land. But however, at the end of the day, it's always going to be a temporary solution, okay? So I wrote some stuff out here, but like once again, as we saw before, as you guys know, my favorite arc is Skypiea. Also, I like sagas. I don't like saying my favorite arc. I like saying my favorite saga because like the arcs are cool, but they work together in tandem with their arc. So like I always put like Jaya and Skypiea together, and like Marineford and like Impelled Down together because they're honestly like parts of a whole than individual things on their own. But anyway, I'm moving on. But we saw like the whole premise in Skypiea, right? And I've said this a million times. It's a microcosm of the entire series, right? And so we saw that one of the big issues that they were having on the Sky Island was the fight for Verth, right? even though like there was so much land up there, there was only one place in the entire sky where like you could like grow food, and there were certain like natural animals, right? And so the powers that be, like whoever was the strongest or like laid claim to it, took that land. And so like we had issues where, okay, now we have strong beings taking the land. We had an issue where we had the natives fighting the Skypeans that had been there forever, and now we have these new people that are here who aren't from here, who want to like live here, and we have to share our land with them. And so I just so you either have a situation where everyone is starving and unable to eat, except for maybe the privileged, or have a repeat of the situation where, like I said before, you have the Shandorans and the Skypeans where they're fighting over the only Verth available, and they're fighting over resources. I also think that's kind of what we saw in those Enel cover stories when he's looking at like the energy and like people coming down from the sky and people going up. I think there was some kind of trade, maybe like energy for food or something or the other like that. Side note, I still don't think that's the direction we're going, but potentially it could be, maybe Nami and Usopp with their combined weather knowledge and plant knowledge could make some kind of GMO versions of foods that could grow in clouds, right? So anyway, moving on to the next thing. I think this is the most important reveal in the entirety of this chapter, me personally, and I think a bunch of people are going to miss it. But it is that the drums of liberation are a more powerful and potent source of energy than the mother flame. From my understanding, from my interpretation of the text, it sounded like to me that what Vegapunk was saying was they could not even get Emeth to turn on. Now, let's logic this. There's maybe some nuance to it. Maybe like it could generate enough power, but like Emmet would have to want to turn on. Maybe the reason was like, yeah, I'm getting enough energy, but screw it, like I'm waiting for Joy Boy. But from like how I'm choosing to like interpret it, the Mother Flame was not providing enough energy for Emeth to activate, which is crazy because you have to think about the fact that like this Mother Flame powered the goddamn weapon that destroyed a whole island, whether that be Pluton or Uranus, we don't know yet, but like it powered a weapon that strong. So you're telling me this dude like takes more power than that? So I do think that there is something I am missing here a little bit, but regardless, I'm still going to say if my theory is correct, it is insane what Luffy did, that his drums of liberation generated power to power on Emmet when the Mother Flame could not. And which the more significant fact about that is Luffy alone will be most likely able to power the ancient weapons himself. So that's a really, really important, really, I feel like potentially glossed over aspect of this chapter, if once again I'm understanding and interpreting everything correctly. Anyway, I just think it's so crazy all of this happened on like the same day that the Straw Hats show up. That is insane. So literally the morning of Luffy and crew arriving, Vegapunk puts himself, Shaka, and Pythagoras in this memory wipe chamber, erases their memory, and leaves a letter for himself. And I think it is kind of hilarious how like he just has a note like, hey, wiped your memory. Oh, there's a traitor, by the way, which I feel like, okay, if you didn't want him to know it was York, why say that there's a traitor? But I guess like telling him to die without that context wouldn't make sense. Also, being the world's smartest man, I'm sure that if he had to write something like that under duress, or if it was a fake letter by someone else that wasn't him, there would be telltale signs that he would recognize from himself. Like maybe he put like, he wrote a certain way or put little like clues that lets him know like, oh, by the way, like I definitely wrote this. This isn't some BS. Someone didn't come in, kidnap you guys, wipe your memory, and bullshit this letter, because that is a very real possibility. And the fact that like Vegapunk just kind of just like, okay, makes sense, is a little bit wild to me. But I guess, how would people get up there in the first place? How would people access it? I still do think that, once again, a bit of a lackadaisical like nature of that, but I digress. Anyway, back to like Oda liking his parallels and his microcosms and stuff like that, I wouldn't be surprised if this was something else that happened in the Void Century. You know what I mean? Especially with this the title of the chapter, Void Fortnight, right? 2 weeks, Void 2 weeks. Maybe like by some devil fruit ability or some hockey ability, they were able to erase the memories of everyone. And go way back in like the early of One Piece, when does a man die? When he is forgotten. And what part of the reason the Void Century was so successful was because not only did they just get rid of all remnants and stuff like that of the ancient kingdom minus the like poneglyphs and all that, but maybe they did a massive mind wipe, like eternal like Tsukiyomi, and erase the minds of everyone. And that's like kind of what will lead us into discovering like what the will of D is. It was like the only way that they could like kind of somewhat hang on to a semblance of like the past and history. So there's like so much to work with there in that aspect. So like once again, parallels, microcosm, the will of D was getting rid of memories and leaving instructions like the poneglyphs, and possibly storing once again like hockey that will be able to like educate and like help them out in the future behind. And honestly, maybe there might be other emets or ancient automata from the past in these poneglyphs or whatever, or just simply stored hockey. Who knows? But I think these are really good. Anyway, they read the letter, and like I said, it's super crazy to me that they just kind of accept everything. Once again, he could have written this himself under duress, but I feel like he would have left a clue. But he says he has to die. I think it's a little convoluted. I said earlier, Lilith gets to survive, so his whole "they're gonna look for us forever" thing is a little bit insane. Ethan saw Lilith run away with them, so I just don't get this whole idea. But I think it's just for a sacrifice for the sake of sacrifices, which normally I don't like, still kind of don't like, but I do think that once again, I've repeatedly been shown that we need to give Oda benefit. So yeah, another really cool parallel and illusion I think we see is, even though they say we're not going to be able to remember it, we're not going to be alive for it, like this is going to like help the world. So through our death, we will have victory. And I think once again, that's going to be another Will of D thing. Through their deaths, through their sacrifices, they'll get victory, even though they personally themselves won't get to achieve it. Like it'll be a win regardless from the grave. So that's kind of cool. We end off with all the giants and the Straw Hats celebrating, escaping. They're holding up Usopp, he's excited. They're holding up Luffy, he's dying. He's like, can we do this later? Because I am dying right now. I think that's hilarious. I don't even know if he's capable of eating right now because no one's bringing him food or whatever. I'm sure the next chapter we'll see him. The first thing we'll see is him like devouring food. But he was in Gear 5 for a really long ass time. So I would not be surprised if he was like down and out for the count for a while. But yeah, we're heading to Elbaf. This is the last chapter of Egghead. Was really surprised how abruptly it came to an end, but I'm glad we're moving on, and I cannot wait for the next chapter. Thank you guys for staying tuned. I know it was a little bit rambly. I took notes, and I'm kind of not feeling well, so I was kind of like, let me just get this video done and uploaded because I've been loafing, so I appreciate you guys a lot. Let me know what you think about my theories, especially the most important thing about Luffy being able to power the ancient weapons himself, and being able to store and allow people to use his hockey. Maybe he'll be able to imbue like hockey in like Usopp's like pop greens and stuff to make him stronger. The possibilities are fucking endless. We now know that Shanks is on a complete different level of mastery of Conqueror's hockey, but for some reason his seems to have like malice or hostility in it, as opposed to Joy Boy's, which they describe as, I think they're saying it's a little bit more, they said it has no hostility to it, so it's just pure like maybe joy or love or whatever, or just like protection. So there's just so much. I can't wait. It's very clear to me that Oda has an idea what's going on. He definitely, like, things aren't just being pulled out his ass. There's rhyme and reason, and we're just gonna slowly see them roll out. Anyway, take care. Thank you for tuning into Otaku Talk. It's me, your boy, your host, OD. Have a great week. Take care. Peace. Oh, and like, share, and subscribe.